Hello, all of my beautiful people, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome if you are new. I am so happy to be here, and I am so happy that you guys are here today. We are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in October, and I am so excited to get into it with you guys. I feel like in September, I was reading more fall-themed books. In October, I definitely went into more romantasy, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about those books, and also just books in general. I feel like I'm like on the verge of a reading slump, so I'm trying really hard to continue reading the books and not let myself get dragged down too deep into this reading slump. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we will get into all of the books that I ended up reading in the month of October. If you guys watched my September wrap-up or literally any of my recent TikToks, you would know that I am absolutely obsessed with The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. It is my favorite book of the year, and I absolutely love it. So it is no surprise that for my first October read, I had to pick up the second book by Jessica Joyce, which is You with a View. I mean, technically this is her debut, but also it's the second book to me. You with a View is about Theo and Noelle. Noelle is a photographer who is like reluctantly a photographer. She's kind of in between jobs at the moment, doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, and is afraid that photography is what she wants to do but won't kind of pay the bills, and she's afraid to follow her dreams. She's also grieving the loss of her grandmother who had recently passed, and while going through her stuff, she ends up finding a picture of her grandmother and a mystery man from when they were young. So like any person at this day and age, she goes to TikTok and posts this very cinematic video of this picture of her grandparents, asking if anyone on the internet knows who this man is. And lo and behold, a mystery user comments. She then sets up a meeting to meet this mystery man from the photo, and she meets the man that her grandmother was in love with, who also happens to be the grandfather of her high school rival, Theo. The three of them then embark on the honeymoon journey that would have been had Noelle's grandmother ended up marrying Paul, Theo's grandfather. This book has little letters as well from Paul to her grandmother and her grandmother to Paul, and it is honestly just the sweetest. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think that it was really, really good. There were some moments that I wish were expanded on a little bit, and some of them were some of the letters, but overall it was such a fun and easy book, and I honestly just love Jessica Joyce's writing. It was absolutely amazing in that perspective. I'm actually really sad to find out that Jessica Joyce is not releasing a book for 2025. Her next book's going to be in 2026, and I follow her on Instagram, and she's letting out hints of what this next book is, and I'm so excited. But to stave me over, I also have her novella, so I have a little bit more of Jessica Joyce's writing to read, but I absolutely loved these books. It was so much fun, and I ended up giving it 4 stars, which I think I already mentioned. The next book that I ended up reading in October was Expiration Dates. Now, this book has been on my TBR for quite a while, so I was excited to get to it. However, it was a bit of a miss for me. I ended up giving it 2.75 to 3 stars because ultimately my personal reading taste didn't really align with this book. Basically, this book is about our main character Daphne, and she gets these notes sent from the universe with a person's name and then the date that their relationship will end. So she's gone on all of these dates, all of these relationships. There's always been a set end date that the universe has sent her before she's even experienced this relationship. However, one day she gets a note about this man that she has met, and there is no date. So she's like, okay, perfect. The universe is telling me it's my happily ever after, or I could be dead. But that's not really the point here. I think my issue here with this book was that because we spent so much time following Daphne's love stories, it really got kind of confusing as to who the love interest was and also what was happening. I also felt that I needed to spend more time with the love interest, and because we were hopping around all of these time frames, I was like, just give me the wonderful relationship that Daphne has in her life right now. So I think that's where it left me a little bit wanting. I also didn't like one of the major twists that Daphne had with her own personal situation. I won't get into any details about that because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but it felt very abrupt and very random, and I was like, okay, I feel like this is just kind of being tossed in here for some sort of representation or something. I don't know exactly the right words to describe it, but I just didn't really enjoy it. I think that I can really see why some people would enjoy this book and why they would be okay with not spending as much time with the love interest, but for me that's really important. I need lots of time with our love interest, so for those reasons I rated it lower, but I think that this is definitely a book that someone would enjoy. The next book that I read was a bit more of a fall spooky romance, and that was My Vampire Plus One. This is the second book in an interconnected standalone series. Last year I ended up reading My Roommate is a Vampire, and I gave that one a 4 stars because it was so quirky and so fun and so just like unexpected in some ways, and while I still giggle about the trash art, it was a fun time. This book was a 3 star for me personally, as some elements just missed slightly. I would say in this book there's like an overall hunt kind of going on for one of our main characters, and I'd say that that plot point really got picked up and dropped quite a bit. But basically this book is about our main character Amelia. She's very, very hardworking and she doesn't really have time for love. Enter a family wedding. She needs a fake date because she cannot handle this family wedding on her own, and she runs into Reggie. The two end up entering a fake arrangement so that Amelia can bring Reggie as her vampire plus one. I will say the amount of Edward Cullen references in this book was actually fantastic for me personally, because I am normally someone who hates references to modern things in books. However, here it was fun because it was vampiric, and also the book, you can't take this book too seriously if you're gonna have a good time. Overall, it was fun and entertaining, but some plot points did get picked up and put down. And I also didn't understand how our female main character just like didn't get things through her head at times. If you read the book, you'll know what I mean, but I don't want to get into too many spoilers here. The next book that I ended up reading was The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and this was highly anticipated because it is everywhere on TikTok. And The Pumpkin Spice Cafe is the first book in this Dream Harbor series, but they're interconnected standalones. So I couldn't get The Pumpkin Spice Cafe at my library. So I was like, you know what? The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, we'll give it a go. However, this book did not click for me, and so I ended up reading it 2 stars. I loved the bookstore setting and the mystery was fun. However, the reveal was the most anticlimactic thing I've ever experienced in my entire bookish life. It also was very like insta lust, insta love, and I think that that's very interesting because the Pumpkin Spice Cafe is kind of described as if Luke and Lorelai were to get together, but it didn't take 5 seasons. And I feel as though the author maybe took that a little bit too seriously in making this so insta lovey, because immediately they're like attracted to each other, immediately they are there. And I guess there is some history with the town, so like it's not too unrealistic, but it just came on very strong for me personally as a reader. I also felt that this book was extremely spicy for what it was. There's nothing wrong with a lot of spice, however, I just personally wasn't prepared for it, and I didn't really like it in this book. I don't know if it was the narration, but there's just something that with the like intimate spicy scenes that were not clicking for me, and I did not enjoy. Overall, this book just left me wanting a lot more substance. I wanted more about the town. I wanted more about the characters' relationships. I wanted more about the bookstore and that lore. I wanted more tension and angst throughout. I feel like this book will work for some people if you like cozy, light, spicy fall books, but it just didn't have enough detail or enough things to grip me, and the mystery was cute, but again, extremely anticlimactic. After all of that romance, I wanted to move into something a little bit more fantastical, and I ended up picking Blood and Steel Up from my local library. This is a romantasy about Wilder, Hawthorne, and Thea. Thea has always wanted to be a warrior or a shield bearer in her world. However, because of a prophecy that was foretold, all women in this world are not able to be warriors, train, or handle a blade. Thea does not let this stop her, and she trains in secret and spies on all of the other shield bearers and warriors that are training in this world. This, unfortunately, gets her caught, and she ends up in this tumultuous situation where she is now training, but she is the only woman, and she has the grumpy warrior Wild on her tail / trying to keep her alive and train her, but like not really at the same time. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I was immediately enthralled and obsessed with the world. It felt very Viking-like, but I can't tell if that was just me like wanting it to be super Viking or if it actually was super Viking, but I feel like it was. The ragtag team that Thea ends up becoming a part of was very, very cute, and it honestly really left me with what I was craving, which was a larger cast of characters. I feel like with the different superiors and the people that she was training with, we actually got a larger cast, which is exactly what I wanted. It's not huge, but I think that's going to expand as the books go on further. Overall, I really enjoyed the plot of the story. I thought it was fast-paced, it was fun, it was interesting to watch this dynamic of her in an area where technically she's not supposed to be. Like, she's the only female warrior and she's trying to bring back female warriors, and so to have her kind of plopped in this environment that she's just surrounded by men trainees was a very interesting dynamic that I liked exploring. I will also say that the author did an amazing job with this book because I was constantly asking questions. We were constantly getting the answers to questions, and I constantly had more questions, and we were slowly getting answers. And I'm really excited for the next book. The next book that I read was actually for my Book Talk book club with some of my good friends on Book Talk, and this was so fun because we actually had a live show about it, and we will be having another live show for our current book club pick that I will leave some more information about in the description box for you guys. But Phantasma was a very fun time, and I ended up rating it 3.75 stars. This book is about our main character Ophelia, and she is a necromancer, and unfortunately her mother ends up passing away. Because Ophelia's mother just passed, Ophelia ends up inheriting even more family magic. However, with her mother's passing, she ends up realizing that things are not always as they seem, and that her family is actually in debt and they're about to lose their house, and she doesn't know how this has happened. Her sister Guinevere ends up running to Phantasma to solve all of their family's problems, and like any good older sister, Ophelia cannot let that happen, and she also joins Phantasma. Phantasma is a giant spooky funhouse that travels around the city, and when you enter, you compete in a bunch of deadly trials to be the last one standing to get your wish granted by this master devil person. It was very fast-paced, and the atmosphere and fashion was described absolutely beautifully. I will say that because it is trials, they are much more in detail than the book that I will talk about next with you guys, but they did get a little bit repetitive, and I couldn't always picture the trials perfectly. I will also say that Ophelia can be a little bit repetitive repetitive in her notion of her relationship with our love interest, Blackwell. Our love interest in this book is a phantom that lives in Phantasma, and his name is Blackwell, and he strikes a deal with Ophelia to help her go through these trials so that she can reconnect with her sister Genevieve. I really loved Blackwell's consent in this book. Like, he was constantly asking and checking in with her, which I really enjoyed. I will also say that the banter that they had was quite entertaining, and I did also enjoy that. Overall, this book had vibes that were absolutely on point. The trials kept me on my toes, kept me intrigued. While they were a little bit hard to visualize and sometimes their actions in them were a little bit repetitive, mainly by Ophelia, I did really enjoy this book, and it was such a fun pick for our first book club book. The second to last book that I have to talk to you guys about is Serpent and the Wings of Night. This book is about our main character Oriah, and she is a human living in a vampire's world. Oriah was adopted by the vampire Lord Victor, and she was raised and trained by him. She then enters the magical competition that will allow her to ask the goddess Nyaxia for a wish, and she enters this competition and immediately is badass. Honestly, her training is quite impressive, but she ends up meeting this guy named Rain, who she immediately does not trust. She's like, I do not like you. You are big, you are tall, you are going to hurt me. And the two end up forming an unlikely alliance and bond through what I would call reluctance. Now, I'm internally laughing about this one because I have literally been reading this book for months. Like, I'm not kidding. I started this book back in the summer, and I got 47% of the way in. And I put the book down. I ended up picking up this book because I wanted to experience this romantasy that everyone is talking about on Book Talk. I feel like it's one of the solid foundation pillars of Book Talk romantasy. I also read the Daughter of No World series by Carissa Broadbent. As you guys know, I talked about it in my wrap up, and I also have a vlog of me reading it, so you can always check that out. But this is a very different tone from that, and so I wanted to give it a go. I will say that this book struggled with what Phantasma thrived in. I was reading these at the same time when I ended up picking this back up, but I really got to see how much more the trials in Phantasma were really flushed out compared to Serpent of the Wings of Night. This book really struggled with pacing for me personally. I felt like there was so much lead up to these trials that we had going on, and then absolutely no information on what was actually happening in the trials, and the trials were done in a chapter, and I was like, hold on, what is going on? Why are these going so fast? Where is the battle, the tension, the angst? It just was not there for me at all personally. Our main female character also has this friendship with a human. I think her name is Ilona, but I also could be completely wrong in pronouncing that, but I pronounced it as Ilona, and I just felt that this relationship, I wasn't able to really buy into it. I felt like she had this relationship at the beginning, and I understood the friendship, but the amount of times that she was brought up, or this deep grief that she felt, didn't really feel super authentic to me. And I don't know if that's because I'm just being a hater on this book, because that's entirely possible at this point, because I just didn't really enjoy it. And honestly, I kind of wanted to DNF it, but I also really wanted to see what all of this hype about the book was. And I would say that overall, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It definitely struggled to keep my engagement, but I enjoyed the overall aspect of it. And I really liked how it ended. I feel like it ended on a giant cliffhanger that would leave people to be dying for the second book. However, it left on a cliffhanger that I was like, okay, I kind of can see in my head where this is going, and I'm okay with where my head's taking it, so I don't feel like I need to read the next one. The last book that I read in the month of October was a novel love story by Ashley Poston. I had really high expectations from this book because I really loved The 7 Year Slip, and I love books about bookish things even more, so I was very excited for this book. This book is about our main character Eileen, who has absolutely found a home in her fictional stories, particularly by this one author. However, unfortunately, this author passed away, and the books are kind of left with an unresolved story. Eileen is then driving to the cabin where her book club normally meets annually. However, unfortunately, no one is going this year due to different life conflicts. And while she's driving up to this cabin for her book club to escape into these books, she ends up finding herself accidentally in the fictional town. So like all of Ashley Poston's book, this one has a bit of magical realism. However, this one's magical realism really felt tossed in at the end and did not really get fully explained as to how it would work, so that really was disappointing to me. I will also say that Anders is our love interest in this book, and I really did not enjoy the dynamic between Eileen and Anders, which is kind of hard when it's a romance book when you do not like how the love interests are interacting with each other. I think that some lines in this book really resonated with me, and I was highlighting like crazy on my Kindle, but then others felt a bit flat, and I liked this town was a bit more fleshed out. This book was giving what I wanted in the town being more fleshed out, learning more about the characters from what I wanted with primetime romance. However, because I did not like the dynamic of the love interests together, and also the magical realism element explanation at the end was really anticlimactic, and I can't tell if that was just me reading late at night, but really when I was reading it, I was like, what the heck is going on here? Sometimes books just have aspects that are a little of a miss. I ended up giving it 3 stars because of those quotes that I really resonated with, and it was well written, and I did like the fleshed out town, but overall the romance with the love dynamic just didn't work for me. So those are all of the books that I ended up reading in the month of October. I have to be a bit honest and say that I have been a little bit discouraged when filming these wrap-ups because I feel like every book that I'm talking to you guys about is a book that I did not rate very highly or did not rate very well, because it's honestly just been like a bad reading year. So I'm sorry if they're a bit of a bummer to watch and I'm like, I didn't like this book, but I also want to sit and talk with you guys and film, so I'm a bit struggling in that manner of what videos to film, if not wrap-ups, because wrap-ups are a time where I can just yap about all of the books that I read, and I feel like it kind of keeps you guys in the loop, but then I also feel bad about yapping about books that I didn't like, so I don't really know how to navigate this, and I'm just trying my very best at the moment. I also love filming wrap-up videos because I love watching wrap-up videos, so that's where I'm at. I'm hoping that later in this year and next year are better reading years where I can be like, oh my god guys, look at all these wonderful books that I'm reading. Not that these books aren't wonderful, but I'm gonna start rambling because you guys do not need to hear every inner thought inside of my head. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys again soon. Bye everybody.